Dan Hooker versus Mateusz Gamrot. Who's going to win this fight? Well, before we talk about who's going to win this fight, let's take a look at their latest performances, in which Dan Hooker fought Claudio Puelles, in which both started very slow in round one until Dan Hooker hurt Claudio with some nasty kicks to the body, and Claudio couldn't continue in round two. After this, Dan Hooker wanted to fight Jalen Turner, in which both started very fast in round one until both got rocked in round two. Dan Hooker then dropped Jalen Turner in round three, and obviously Dan Hooker ended up taking it by decision. Let's take a look at Mateusz Gamrot's latest performances, in which he fought Rafael Fiziev, in which both started out very great in round one until the fight had to be stopped due to Rafael Fiziev getting a knee injury in round two. After this, Gamrot wanted to fight Rafael dos Anjos, in which Rafael dropped Mateusz in round one until Mateusz brought it back with his wrestling and grappling, took control of the whole entire fight, and he ended up taking it by decision.
Now, this fight is a really bad matchup style-wise, and the UFC did a really bad job by making this fight, and that is simply because we know how this fight is going to play out, and that is that this fight is going to be a pretty boring fight, simply because Mateusz Gamrot is a very dominant wrestler. Meanwhile, Dan Hooker prefers to strike, so it sucks that we're not going to be able to see Dan Hooker show off his striking skills as much as he would have if he was fighting a striker who was willing to strike throughout the whole entire fight. Not to mention that Gamrot is ranked number 5 and Dan Hooker is ranked number 11. So now that we know that this fight is not evenly matched, I still have hope for Dan Hooker, as I would like to see Dan Hooker do something very significant on feet. Maybe if he can keep his range and touch up Gamrot and hopefully land something significant on Gamrot, then he might have some good success in this fight. But here's the thing, even if he lands something significant, I do believe that he needs to finish Gamrot, because if Gamrot is able to survive, he's going to shoot for a takedown, and from then on, I see him controlling the whole entire fight. And yes, I do see him winning the fight in that sense, which yes, it may be boring, but it works. So in the end, I do got Mateusz Gamrot winning this fight, and if he does end up winning this fight, I still believe that he gains no credibility since Dan Hooker is ranked lower than him, on top of the fact that we all knew style-wise Dan Hooker wasn't going to stand a chance. So if Gamrot wants to make an impression, he needs to finish the same way Dan Hooker needs to finish.